A solo queue skill that's often overlooked is communication. It's quite different from how most people would imagine communication in an in-house or 5v5 competitive setting. You're not in voice comms with all 4 of your teammates, and they typically are people that you've never played with before, unless you are High Diamond Plus or playing on a small server such as Oceania. For many people, they feel it's difficult to get their solo queue teammates to listen to them. They feel like they're making the correct calls, but since their teammates are not on the same page, nothing gets done correctly as they would like for it to. So how do you get your stubborn teammates to listen? If you want them to listen to you, you first need to understand what makes someone not want to listen to your calls. Since I know League players have difficulty seeing things from other people's perspectives, try to see it from your own perspective when you don't want to listen to someone else. Everyone's had teammates that they strongly disagreed with for whatever reason. Try to recreate those situations in your mind and think about why you went against or ignored their calls. It could be for a plethora of different reasons. I'll go over some of the main ones for ignoring and or muting communication. You think they're stupid. They have demonstrated their incompetence to you. If your 0-12 Yasuo is calling for a play, you're probably not going to respect his opinion the same way that you would a 12-0 Yasuo. It doesn't have to be KDA related though. Even a very stupid death could sometimes be enough for people to no longer value a teammate's opinion. But even if they do normally make good decisions, maybe they made a call that you simply don't agree with. You have nothing wrong with the person, you just think the call is bad. Believe it or not, it's possible for your teammates to be in the same position where they genuinely believe your calls are bad, and they may even be right sometimes. Aggressive typing, whether it be in full aggression or passive aggression, either way, most people don't like it. Some people only care when it's targeted towards them personally, but others may care in general, regardless of who it's directed to. Pinging over a single mistake, especially if it was a minor mistake like missing a skill shot or smite, also is an easy way to get muted. Just because your teammate messed up does not mean you have to let them know. They very likely already know that they messed up, and telling them again doesn't change that. The most common one is when someone's spamming, talking or pinging way too much. Spamming is one of the faster ways to incite a mute, or at least being told to shut up in the chat. Hearing the chat pop-up sound or the ping sound over and over again gets really distracting and gets on most people's nerves. People that type really cringy messages or are overly positive can also end up getting muted. Cringe e-daters with matching names typing ooh-woo messages back and forth deserve it, to be honest. If that's you, I hope you get disowned. As I said before, you also have to be careful being too nice. It can come off as fake or passive aggressive, especially if it's in text form. League players are so used to expecting negative experiences in solo queue when it comes to chat that it's easy for them to misinterpret your good intentions. Timing is crucial for pinging effectively. How many times have you been in a game and had a teammate ping missing as you're dying to their enemy laner? From purely a self-improvement perspective, technically it's your fault for not looking at the map and noticing it even without the ping. However, you should still be able to understand how frustrating it is to be in that situation. The information doesn't do anything for you if it's given to you too late, so if you want your teammates to listen to you, you should be pinging as early as you can within reason. Some people take this too far and they'll ping their entire jungle pathing from level 1. I'm not a fan of pinging that far in advance because you can easily screw over your teammates if you have them thinking you're going to do one thing and then you change your mind halfway through, because your teammate may have adapted how they were going to play in order to match up whatever you were wanting to do. Instead, ping once it's pretty high odds that you're going to commit to the play, or you know the information is going to be beneficial regardless for your teammate. An example of this is pinging the location of the enemy jungler. Ignorance. Keep in mind that they may have genuinely not noticed the ping. They were tunnel visioned on a fight or distracted by something else. It's not always out of malice or because they don't want to listen to you. This can happen very easily if you only ping something once and it's not on their screen. Try to make sure at least one of your pings is in their vision. Imagine their lock screen and they refuse to look at the minimap. Of course, this isn't always going to apply like if you're pinging for Aberrant, but just keep it in mind. It goes a long way, especially if you're in lower elos. If you feel none of these apply, and they still aren't responding to you, maybe they muted that form of communication from the beginning of the game. I personally play with chat off every game, and some people play with pings off. You aren't going to be able to get every player to follow up on your calls, but there's still plenty of things you can do to try to increase the odds. Now that you know what makes someone not want to listen to you, it should be pretty easy to figure out what you need to do to get people to listen to you more. Simply do the opposite. Let's go into some real examples of how to communicate better with your teammates. In this game, the jungle Nidalee is mad at the bot lane because they didn't rotate. So the Milio decides to respond, saying that the Nidalee should have helped out earlier in the game. If you play with chat on, you probably see this all the time. The problem with this is that it doesn't do anything. You end up in a situation where regardless of whether people agree or disagree, it's not going to impact the remainder of the game. The problem is you can't go back and change what already happened. So talking about it later in the game doesn't do anything. If you're doing a review with a friend or something like that, then there is some value in talking about different options, but not with solo queue teammates while you're in your game. So now let's look at the play that Nidalee was upset about. She's currently doing Dragon. She's not pinging anything whatsoever. The bot lane's not pinging anything towards the Nidalee, not telling her to back off, not telling her to gank. Absolutely nothing between them. So of course, they're going to be on different pages. If you're not communicating at all, you don't have the right to be upset when your teammates don't do what you're wanting them to do. Here's an example of typing too early in the game and what you're wanting to do. This Morgana is telling her Hecarim that she wants to play for Grubs at literally 119 in the game. I would much rather the Morgana tell him a little bit closer, somewhere around 530, 545, when she knows all the variables that are present. Is the mid laner going to be helpful in a fight? Are they really far behind? Same thing with top lane. Are they going to have prio? Are they going to be able to leave the ADC, or is the wave in a really weird spot? A lot of these things need to be entertained later on in the game. If you don't know all that info and the Hecarim still tries to force the Grubs because he thinks that Morgana's going to do the same, it can get really dicey. It's a lot less about whether the call is correct or not, and more about what information you're giving to your teammates and when you're giving it to them. In this clip, the Zoe wants to play for the dragon fight, so she's walking over. But notice that she's not really pinging anything. She's not pinging what champion she wants to target. She's not pinging anybody to assist. It's purely pingless while fighting. And here, towards the end of the fight, when she's looking to get a pick on Fizz, she's not pinging for assistance, she's not pinging on the way. There's no indication that she's looking for it. Thankfully, she's able to get the burst on her own, but if she wanted Kai'Sa to throw a W or anything like that, she's not going to be able to do it because it's too late. The Kai'Sa's already gone over to get the wave, the Lee Sin's ran off. As said before, the timing of your pings and the frequency of your pings is very important. Whenever you're not actively doing something that requires your full attention, you should be looking to communicate everything that you can. Sometimes it's difficult to dodge skill shots while also pinging at the same time, but there are still going to be plenty of windows in teamfights where you can do it. In the same VOD, there's a better example where there are some pings going on the map. Now the assistance ping in the enemy jungle is a little bit weird, but besides that, we got some pings on Baron, missing ping on Baron. We're clearly giving out the information, and then pretty soon there will be an on the way ping as well. This is good. As said before, ideally we'd be pinging who we want to target, as well as do we want to go in, do we not want to go in. But overall, the pings are much better in this fight compared to the previous fight. In this last example, the enemy Pyke goes missing from lane. At this point, Zeri should be looking to ping missing along the path the Pyke would be going. She would also need to be pinging careful at each step. So once she thinks that he's in tribe rush, she should be pinging that. Once she thinks that he's a little bit closer to mid lane, also pinging that along the way to give the mid laner a good idea of when the Pyke's going to be appearing. And as I said before, you could also put a careful ping on Victor's face to make sure that he gets the message that the Pyke is on the way. Obviously, once the Pyke returns to lane, then you no longer need to ping until he leaves lane again. When it comes to genuine pings, like pinging that your opponent is missing, it's generally good to ping that a bunch. It only becomes a problem if you ping it after somebody dies, or if you missing ping them when they do something stupid. Then people are going to get really mad. Hopefully after going through this video, you're excited to implement some of these ideas to improve your communication in solo queue. But the most important thing to take away from this video is the goal is to influence your teammates' decisions, not control them. You cannot take over their keyboard and mouse. You cannot guarantee any of their decisions nor actions. You shouldn't be expecting everything to always go how you want it to, but as long as you remember that your goal is to influence, not control, you should be on your way to improving your odds of having productive communication.